Okay, so here here is a link to the calendar at Slick, and so um, you'll see the assignments over here on the right, and so there's probably not too much sketching that you need to do for any of this initial assignments. So this is the introduce yourself to the class. Um, so the first creative sketches will probably come with this black squares. Oh, come on. So here's this black squares assignment. This is something that's good to talk about anyway. One of the things that the assignments are designed to do is to um, really tighten down on what the constraints are the for the assignment. So this assignment, you take four black squares and you have to keep the squares inside of the, and so you'll have, let's see if we can click on this, download it. I'll just show you what the, so here are the thumbnails and the, you're trying to explain in six squares. It shows here the order, increase, bold, congestion, tension, and playfulness with just four black squares. So um, I think some people are frustrated with when they kind of see how constraining this is. Um, but that's part of the design process. There's always going to be constraints that you have to overcome. And so that's that's part of what the design process is figuring out how to overcome the constraints. So so this is the first one. So you won't need to do any sketches until you get to this till you get to this point. So and here's where it says the 48 thumbnails total. So for each emotion or that we're trying and emotion isn't quite the right word, but for what we're trying to do here is so you should do eight sketches for each one of these, like order, increase, bold, and I want to make sure to see all of the sketches that go along with that. So, and then they've changed in the last couple of years, they've changed to where you can use Adobe Illustrator to finish your designs, but I want you to start with hand-drawn sketches for this. And for every assignment, the sketches need to be hand-drawn. So, and I just I just think there's something about doing them. Some of the people say, "Oh, I can do them digitally," and I'm probably not going to mark you down for that, but it I just think there's something that helps with the inspiration to do the sketches manually. And that's not because I'm afraid of technology, because that's kind of what got me into design 30 years ago when I started in school, was the technology side of it. Because I still don't think I'm very good at sketching. So I'm not looking for necessarily quality. I'm just looking for your kind of creativity and exploring different ideas. So one thing I want to talk about, and I'll talk about throughout the class, there is a book. So this Designing Your Life, there's Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're the ones that wrote it. They are both college professors, and this Designing Your Life was came out of a class that they teach at both Berkeley and Stanford. That um, and so this is one of the books, and I'll keep reminding you of this book. But I don't expect you to do anything with this until after this class. But I'm going to start here just because I think I made some choices in life because I didn't uh, really, really take a designer's approach and like we're talking about sketches, I didn't really look at very many options. So just so my story is when I was in college, my dad had been an artist his whole life, and he had taught school, but he didn't get along with authority, so he continually found new jobs. He tried a bunch of different things, and so I grew up thinking that as an artist, you could not make that much money. Even though my dad had stories of artists making money, he basically said you can't. He basically proved to me that you you can't make money as an artist. And so he would tell us that all the time, and he still talks like that to this day. And my dad is a phenomenal artist and has gotten some. He worked in the movie industry for 10 or 12 years because he was such a good artist. And so so that was kind of how I framed my approach is I did not want to go into art. I wanted to go into business. And so when I went to school, I took business classes, and then and I don't know if Utah Tech or any school does this, but if you once you signed up for 20, if you were paying for 12 credits, you could take up to 20 credits and it cost you the same. And so I would usually, and I figured if I wanted to graduate in 4 years, I needed to take 18 credits a semester or a quarter. That was quarter system. Wow, quarter system back then. 18 credits a quarter to graduate, and so that left me with a few extra credits. And so I would take ceramics. So I really like ceramics, but I did not think that I could make a living uh, doing ceramics. And I was at the same time I was working in a screen printing shop, and so I really like that. But I looked up what as one of the projects we did for our business classes, look up the industry you're in and find out what the highest paid person is. And the highest paid person I could find was not making as much money as I thought I would need to make to uh, live a comfortable life and uh, raise a family. And so once again, I thought, this art thing is not going to support me. And so I went into business. I got a job at a technology company. And so I only got my associates when I was um, back then. Utah Tech was just a 2-year school, and I had gotten accepted. I got accepted to both BYU and the University of Utah, and I started kind of pursuing that. But then I was offered a job and making really good money in a technology company, and so I stayed with that technology company. But about 10 years into the technology companies, like I wanted to make a change, and I thought, oh, I'll go back and I I wanted to change out of business and into web technology, and so I went back to school, and I figured the fastest way that I could go back is I looked around at a couple of different programs was, and by this time Utah Tech was a 4-year university, and I thought, if I go back to school, I'll get a computer science degree, and then that will make my life way better. And so I went back to school, and the same thing when I went back, I'm like, I'm going to have a few extra credits. I want to take some more ceramics classes. And so I signed up for a ceramics class. And as I was walking into the uh, art building down at Utah Tech, I saw the for an adjunct professor, I saw a name, Shane Christensen, and Shane had been in my ceramics classes when I was at Utah Tech 10 years before. And sure enough, it was the same guy that was in my classes. And he had gone the route where he'd gotten a master's in ceramics from a school back east. He had actually gotten a job as the uh, like ceramics professor or the ceramics department at a school in Texas. And so he had done that for several years. And then his family wanted to move back to St. George. And he knew at that time the ceramics professor down at Dixie at that time, his name was Glenn Blakely. And he knew that Glenn Blakely was going to retire in a few years. And so he found a job teaching ceramics at a junior high down in St. George. So he went down there and he was adjuncting. So so this is like 15 years ago. It's almost 20 years ago. 20 years ago. So it's 20 years ago. He was in St. George. He was working at the he was so he was getting his healthcare coverage from the junior high or that school district down there. He was adjuncting and just waiting for Glenn Blakely to retire so he could take over the ceramics position at Dixie College. And at that point, his teapots were going for like $1,200 for a teapot. And I don't know what he's getting for teapots now. He was doing shows and stuff, and it doesn't. I've checked him out a little bit, and he's not doing as many shows. Let's see if I can find Shane. Come on. Let's see if we can find. So this is Shane right here. Let's see if we can. Let's see if he's got any ceramics. Oh yeah, this is him, and these are the kinds of teapots that he does, and he gets big money for. And I'm assuming if he was getting $1,200 for one of these years ago, he is probably getting much more than that now, hopefully. So, and I can just tell by looking at this, like his style of pots. So, so what I realized with this story is that you can make an living as an artist. The reason my dad wasn't making a living is just because it's so hard for him to get along with other people, especially people in charge of him. And so I looked at Shane. Shane was providing just fine for his family. He still continues to provide fine for his family, and he was doing what he loved, his passion. And so, even though that was 20 years ago, I still have not switched over to to a ceramics lifestyle. I'm getting a little bit closer, and I've taken a couple of ceramic classes between then and now. But um, so this designing your life will show you kind of how to kind of work through this design process to design your life. And so I'm not going to send out a link now, but towards the end of the semester, I'll talk about this a little bit more. But this is a really similar process, just so like we're going to go through our design um, projects in this class. And so I should, I think my dad's old enough now on IMDb that I could. Why is my caps lock? So even though his picture's not on here, you have to pay to get your picture on there. So these are some of the movies that my dad worked on. And so it was kind of fun to see. For a while there, we would get he would bring all kinds of stuff from the special effects movies that he worked on. But the reason he did this is just because he was such a good artist. Let's see if we've got. I'm gonna look up The Man with Two Brains because he worked on that movie. So this is funny. These They ordered a ton of these jars for the movie, and when the movie was over, they had like 1,200 of these jars. And so growing up, we had several of these jars holding stuff at my house, and these brains we had my dad brought a bunch of those brains home. I'm gonna see if there's another. He had this. So this bed right here, my dad made this little bed, this crackling tube bed. If you ever see the movie, trying to see if they've got a better. So in the movie, he has this dungeon that he's in, and there's these lights. And my dad made all the lights in there too. They were, yeah, you can't see the lights. Anyway, so my dad was good enough as an artist um, to get into the movie business, but then he wasn't. He didn't. He wasn't getting along with people well enough to stay in the industry. He burned all of his bridges, and he lives in Georgia now, and he still thinks that people have done him wrong. So, but I just tell the story because I want all of you to think um, it's possible to make money as an artist or designer or whatever you want to go into with the screen printing that I did, and I didn't think that I could make money doing that. I left St. George, and a couple of years after I left, the screen printing shop was sold to one of the people who worked there, and that guy still owns a screen printing company in St. George, and so he also made plenty of money, um, enough to afford living in St. George with the screen printing shop. And I talked to him over the years, and he's done just fine. And so instead of looking at what people were making working for screen printing shops, I should have been looking at how much you could make as an owner of a screen printing shop. And so if I would have gone through this process, the design your life process here, it would have made a I think it would have made a difference for me then. Let's see. So this is the book, and you can see it's for a hardcover book, it's not that expensive for one of these. If you want the book, the first time I got it, I checked it out from the library. I I started reading it, and I was about halfway through the book, and I found a better job making more money. And another time I started through the book, and I got about three-fourths of the way through the book. I found a better job at the company where I'm working now. Seriously, the best company I've worked for um, in my life, and I've worked for a lot of companies. And so it's made a big difference for me. But part of the process is just reframing what you think about your situation where you are. So, one thing, and we're gonna end fairly early today because I noticed that you've got a few assignments due this weekend. So, and then you can get started working on your project for actually the following weekend. But if for the class, if you find something that you think is well designed during the week, I would like you to bring it and share it. Or if you want to do something like if you want to create a video for it and just share the video. So what I picked this week is we found this brownie root beer, but and I should take a better picture of it. But the logo and the colors are just really well designed. It's got the same logo you can see in the colors, and we're because it's close enough to green that it's going. But just really fun logo here. I should take a picture. That's not doing very well, but so that's just something where somebody took some extra time to work on the design for that. And there's plenty of I mean, I see billboards and labels and all kinds of things that if somebody would have just taken a little bit more time, drawn a few more sketches, I think they could have come up with something that is better. So that's all I wanted to talk about tonight. Um, has anyone had any trouble with the class or with Canvas? I guess that's a no. So so that's it for tonight. I'm going to stop the recording. And if you want to stick around and ask any questions or need help with something, I will be here for a little bit. But if you don't need to stick around, but I'll give you some of this time back to work on your uh, assignment that's due, kind of assignment that's due this weekend.